All right, let's get started today. So in today's video, we're going to discuss less price action and more so narrative and just the overall surrounding picture around crypto. The first thing that I want to start off with is the Raoul Pal tweet thread that he had. I spoke about this in yesterday's video. So let's just go through it real quick because I think it's particularly important as we wrap up the year and as we head into 2022. We calm our minds and revisit the idea of what happened 2021, and we check off the year and say, here are all the things that have gone down for 2021 and how can we be better prepared for 2022. And so some of the things that Raul mentions, for example, is BTC volumes have been stagnant in the run up since 2020. Okay, that is very interesting because one of the things that I spoke about before is especially in 2021, if we go to coinalyze.net and you go to futures data global charts, if you see the screen right here on volume, just do this and then 1 year. The most evident part of this curve right here is that volumes peaked here in April and May. And since then, volumes have been consistently on a downtrend. If you were to draw this kind of like in candles, this would be basically a sideways consolidation and slowly dripping down. Okay. This is very consistent with Raul and his thoughts on BTC volumes. Next stop. Active wallet addresses have not really gone anywhere. And it seems that retail activity peaked at the beginning of 2021, which is right here. And you can see it's come close to recovery at the point of beginning of 2021 when the market was hot, but really not really. Okay. Next point. But that has been replaced by institutions here measured by wallets with over $10 million, which are rising in general, but the numbers are still pretty small, meaning the bigger whales that are actually taking the BTC and keeping it in their wallets or taking it off exchange. That's been getting bigger. That's good. But if you adjust for price, bigger investors liquidated have barely returned. Okay. Meaning that since the May drop off and the September sell off that we had, all right, since last year and beginning of 2021, it's really not a big figure to recognize that, okay, big figures in the crypto industry have, come back in a big way, right? Meaning it's not like they're buying in big size. Now, the problem with that is, okay, well, what about, people like MicroStrategy who are constantly buying BTC at any price interval? It doesn't matter to them. Well, the problem with MicroStrategy is, remember, they're not an institution, they're not a fund, and they do not have any form of risk management. Okay, this is a person who's really just gone into the depths of Bitcoin and he really believes in it. And Michael Saylor is the person behind MicroStrategy, right? Just remember that these people also have a breaking point, meaning if their bondholders and if their shareholders start talking about, hey, Bitcoin keeps continuously going down in price, say 1 month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, and God forbid, let's just say Bitcoin prices slowly keep dripping down to 40,000, 35, 30, 28, 23 or whatever, right? What exactly do you think is going to be the question that shareholders ask to MicroStrategy? How the hell are you going to get our stock price up? What are you doing with this huge thing on our balance sheet, right? Because they have now, let me see here, Michael Saylor, I think they have about $3.8 billion or $3.7 billion of BTC on their balance sheet. That's a lot of Bitcoin. Okay, just remember that MicroStrategy at some point does have a breaking point. I don't know when that is. Maybe they just really, hold through the storm, but maybe they don't. Remember that we've spoken about March interest rate hikes, right? Interest rate hikes okay, being quite impactful on the market. If the market overall goes down and people start becoming very risk averse and they start de-risking across the board, guess what's going to happen with MicroStrategy stock? It's also going to plunge. And at the same time, Bitcoin is plunging. So you have a double whammy effect. You will see a bigger sale in MicroStrategy stock, and you're seeing Bitcoin go down. Now, again, I'm not trying to spread FUD or anything. I'm just trying to map out the different scenarios that may play out. Because what's really happening is people think that because MicroStrategy is buying, that means other institutions are buying to the same degree. And they're actually not. Okay, it's evident by what Raoul Pal is saying. It's also evident by the fact that, you know, the price action of Bitcoin is really telling you that, okay, there might be passive buyers, but for the most part, they're not stepping up here, right? They may just keep allowing price to keep drip dropping further and further and further. And we don't really know where the floor is. Maybe the floor is once again back to 30,000. I would probably figure that BTC is going to maintain this floor because Bitcoin is supposedly quote unquote cheap at this level. And it is very expensive and, in my opinion, overbought at this level. So maybe we just traverse in this range for, I don't know, another year or something, right? It is entirely possible. Okay. So I want to keep these points in mind as we head into 2022, because they're going to be critically important of how we navigate the waters of the market. Other things that Raoul spoke about, if Metcalfe's law applies, then network growth is currently very slow, hence why price is sluggish. This is the same for ETH, but there's a different factor at play here, hence the outperformance. Well, makes sense because remember, ETH had DeFi and NFTs being built on top of its platform. So you're going to have, you know, slightly more volume, elevated volumes than BTC. The addresses keep rising for Ethereum. So in this particular instance, you can make the argument that, hey, Ethereum is still more popular than BTC as of right now. Okay, but active addresses have stagnated all year as people have rotated into different opportunities in this market, meaning Solana, AVAX, Phantom, all this new stuff that's come up, even near protocol, right? But with ETH, higher volumes equal more ETH burned. So that was the EIP 1559, which went into effect, the Ethereum that's being burned, right? And then, of course, you have the ETH staking, which is where, you know, a lot of people park their ETH into things like Lido Finance, Curve Finance, Compound, Aave, et cetera, right? And that's overall reduced the supply. So what you have is, in effect, burning plus staking plus maintained volume is why ETH has outperformed Bitcoin by 4x in 2021. But with no net real new capital flowing into the space, attention moves to other chains. Solana, AVAX, Phantom, Near Protocol, etc., right? Which also have a proof of stake, but earlier network adoptions, taking volumes away from both Bitcoin and Ethereum. This is creating the rapid rotations as people already in the space shift assets around looking for returns, DeFi, then NFTs, then L1s. So you could basically see, you know, a lot of churn, a lot of cycling around of money, right? It's kind of like a hot potato or musical chairs. Every time, you know, retail starts to figure out, well, what's the next movement in the cycle? By the time that happens, you're pretty darn close to the top of the cycle, right? And this is where you have to be on the ground floor of sort of the insider information or the fundamental analysis to recognize what could be the next cycle, what could be the next L1, what could be the next NFT narrative, right? And I've spoken about this in my newsletter, which I will be dropping this weekend. I'm super excited about that because I personally believe that we will be ahead of the curve in 2022 in terms of catching up with narratives and thesis for you know, investing and research purposes. Okay. All right. So anyway, many of these L1s also have the same staking and burning dynamic, going from, you know, they have them having smaller market caps, so their prices rise faster if volume picks up. Okay. All of these assets, which are driven by network effects, require the network to grow and rise in value. This is why you see explosive price action in projects that suddenly gain network effects as the market decides that has real traction and what hasn't. Okay. This is a good thing for those super focused on the details of each part of the market, but it tends towards a FOMO driven market where latecomers who haven't done their homework get topped and tailed as a market moves on to the next thing. So this is what I just spoke about earlier, right? If you're not up to date with the fundamentals and trying to think outside the box where the next narratives could be, you're going to basically be buying the top, right? This is one of the reasons, again, Alpha Trades, our Medium page, right? This is one of the reasons why we've started to drop so many fundamental, driven articles, because we want to start diving into each of these projects individually. We even wrote an article just on the whole larger topic of GameFi and the metaverse. It's a 20-minute read, but that 20 minutes can give you a whole host of information, a world of information that you would have really, not come to know and not come to think outside the box had you not read this. We talked about Olympus DAO before it even took off, right? We spoke about Olympus DAO, I don't know, damn near in July. Okay, you can see. And only until September did Olympus DAO really explode, right? So all these things we speak about, even from the fundamental narrative driven aspect too, not only just a technical, community, right? We're not just like technical traders. We're trying to branch out and see where the alpha is in terms of recognizing the fundamentals and the thesis of the market. Okay. So anyway, I thought those were the important points of what Raoul Pal mentioned. And then, a couple other things that are important, which is in this arcane research, right? I posted this arcane research in the official announcements page right here, and you can see the link right here. I highly encourage you guys to read it. I think it's particularly important. So I'm going to go through a few points. Number one, there's a whole lot of chop in crypto markets, basically through 2021. Okay, I think that's abundantly clear. But BTC still outperformed the S&P 500 and gold, right? Lots of headlines and lots of events through the entire year of 2021. You can see, China cracking down on Bitcoin mining, Square adding more Bitcoin, MicroStrategy adding Bitcoin basically every single quarter. EIP 1559, which was activated in May, or I think it was August actually. ProShares Bitcoin ETF that was approved. Facebook announced Metaverse, right? Taproot was activated on the Bitcoin network. So, lots of headlines. And then, of course, like I said, Bitcoin outperforms the stock market. Bitcoin being seen as a risk-on asset, meaning when the investment community is very much looking to start putting on big money in the market with big bets, right? Bitcoin is definitely one of those assets that money is going to flow into. But when there's a de-risking, meaning there's a risk-off event, right? Well, that money gets pulled out of Bitcoin very, very fast, and pretty much most of crypto. Okay. Obviously, we had a persistent inflation through the year. It was not good. I think only until November and December time did we start to realize, holy shit, this thing is getting out of control. And that's why Fed recently decided to raise interest rates. Okay. And that's going to ultimately curve this inflation for 2022, but it's also going to be not so good for asset prices like US equities, and US equities will ultimately impact crypto. Interest rates directly will not impact crypto, which I've spoken about before, but the equity market in a event of, pulling money and taking profits out of the stock market will ultimately pull money out of the crypto markets as well. All right. So let me go to that real quick. So year of rising inflation, Binance, clear winner of 2021, but I would say second half of 2021, BNB really didn't do a whole lot. If you kind of compare the outlook of BNB versus Bitcoin and Ethereum for the second half, didn't really do anything. It was only the first half that just had insane gains. and then it's just kind of, floating higher since. Okay, but yeah, BNB definitely the outperformer. This is pretty interesting. 2022 prediction: XRP and Cardano will fall out of the top 10 cryptocurrencies by market cap. I agree with that. 2021 was the year of altcoin season. I totally agree. I mean, most of 2021 was dominated by things like Solana and AVAX, NFT, gaming, metaverse, things like Decentraland and Sandbox. All these things, really just took off and broke out, right? And in a very big way. And then, of course, 2021 has been a very emotional roller coaster for crypto investors. As you can see, as per the fear and greed index, right? I mean, the amount of times that we've actually cycled up and down in the fear and greed index, in my opinion, I think it's much more than previous years. Okay, so I think that's very interesting, because more often than not, you'll see a lot of people panic selling and seeing the fear at the bottom, shorting the bottom basically, and then you'll see most people kind of buying at the top, right? That's really how most retail is, and I think our community has done a pretty darn good job at navigating that, because, like I said, we started the 5K challenge at $5,000. Currently, our account sits at 26,880. A couple days back, we were at 27, but we had this phantom trade that we took. It was a $10,000 trade. We entered at 222. We closed out at 218. Why? Well, because if I pull up the phantom chart right here, right? So basically what happened was, all right, we entered, I think somewhere over here yesterday, right? I think we entered over here somewhere, or maybe it was over here. I can't quite remember. Yeah, I think maybe it was over here. And we were hoping that, hey, this thing was going to see a breakthrough, but it didn't. All right, so we entered on this side. We saw this top off, and literally, on this candle, this big bearish candle, we basically closed out right there, right? And so instead of waiting for a stop to be hit, our stop was like down here, which would have been, from the point that we got out right there to right there, we would have lost another 4%, right? Had we just waited till we got stopped out. So sometimes it helps to be, somewhat active in the market and to just cut your losers short, because if you don't start to recognize that the momentum is shifting and what you anticipated, for example, what I anticipated was this thing consolidate, quickly break out. If I didn't see that, and the market was telling me, hey, I'm going to do what the opposite of what you're expecting, well, then you need to recognize that the market is not doing what you're expecting, and you need to get out of that trade. And I think a lot of people don't quite know when to get out and when to cut their losses short, because they think that, a small loss is still a bad loss, right? And why shouldn't I close this trade at break even, or shouldn't I be able to close this trade in profit? But more often than not, what happens is, once the market starts to turn, it really just bleeds you out. And then you basically, end up selling at the bottom, right? Or you keep moving your stop, and then you have a, bigger loss. So when in fact, what you should have really done is, when you start seeing the momentum shift, get out of the trade. All right. So I think for the most part, our pinnacle of success within our account through the entire year, has been the fact that we've been able to very quickly cut losing trades. All right. And anyone who's been in our community for the entire year will tell you that we have a very short-lived memory for losers, right? We don't give a shit, if this thing is the best coin in the world and is supposed to put in a 10x next month or next year or whatever, right? If we're in it for a trade and we have a defined stop and we're expecting momentum, we better see it fast, or else you need to get out. Okay. All right. So other things happening in the market as per just, basic metrics. I think for the most part, I mean, we've very much kind of, aggressively sold into this, low right here. I want to say we're pretty much bottomed out. Like, I don't know, maybe we have just one more wick down to like 45,000, 44,000. But this CBD right here is kind of telling me that we're quite aggressively sold. And you could kind of see, even though there's a lot of selling happening here, price is actually slowly moving away from the lows. So I'm kind of thinking to myself, we may have established a low. We may have maybe another just scam wick down here around 45. But even if that doesn't happen, I'm thinking like we might just start floating up higher. Okay. Now, the other part of that is if you kind of look at the options data, this is the December 31st strike, right? 48,000 is the key call strike that's very active in terms of volume. Okay. So this is the most traded option right now for December 31st, which is in 24 hours. And that is a $48,000 strike, right? That's a call option. But on the flip side, the highest traded put option is 46,000 for the December 31st call strike or put strike. Okay. So you could see the fact that we're currently gravitating around 47,000, meaning that we're being basically pinned between the 48 and the 46 level. And I think those that are trying to control one side or the other, it could be market makers, really trying to hedge. They may not allow price to either get to 48 or even 46, right? I mean, they may just keep it pinned at 47 by tomorrow. Maybe I could see the argument that, the highest put strike is 46, but then there's, other significant strikes around 48 and 49, and a lot of call options down here for, January and February. So maybe we just nuke all these and we just head straight to 44 or 43 down here. Maybe. I don't quite know. I personally still think we're, kind of in this large range. And if we just sit at these range lows around 46 and 47, I think that might be just enough. It might be just enough to kind of basically blow out any possibilities of these call strikes, closing out in some, profit, gaining some premium. Okay. That's really it on the option side. We know obviously there's a lot of fear sitting at the lows of the market. And like I said, right, crypto has been sort of very spot on with being very fearful at the lows and, epic greed at the highs. So I'm thinking right now that we basically have a lot of fear at the lows because you're kind of seeing, we're pretty darn close to the lows. And people are, once again, starting to become very bearish. Doesn't mean that we can't, put in another low or we can't just keep a base right here. But that base, might get more and more people even more bearish, which could actually be a pretty phenomenal buying opportunity. Okay. So we spoke about global volumes. We spoke about how the interest rate might impact the market. Let me see here. Spoke about CVD, a little bit about the different, data points that we're looking at in this arcane research slide deck. We spoke about what Raoul Pal has mentioned, regarding the different parts of the market. I think that's really about it. I'm kind of thinking to myself that, especially altcoins, like they don't necessarily look great right now. You could kind of see this was a head and shoulders that we were watching, and I was hoping that this thing would turn around and start ripping higher. But in fact, on FTM, this is actually a confirmed head and shoulders. And in fact, now this is the rejection of this neckline that you're seeing. So, ultimately, like this is what I would say is, a shorting opportunity, right? I mean, the shorting opportunity is very clear, which is that you go short here, you place your stop, just above this high right here around 2.23. Your first target profit is just this local low, but then your next target profit can be somewhere down here around 185, 190, which is actually based off this daily level, right? So this 193 marker, 190, that could be an area that FTM might head on into. Okay. And then ETH, of course, really not looking good. You can see we once again came back down inside this descending trend line, multiple bearish candles on the way down. Looks like we're maybe kind of forming a bottom here, right at this, crucial level where we previously had resistance turned into support, wicked into that as a support, multiple wicks right here, but now we're, I don't know, 3 times coming into the same level in the span of a month. These 3 touches, not really a good thing, but I could still say that, okay, it's better to just, maybe swallow the idea that this could be a very tight long, or just, again, sit tight, like don't take a trade, but like I said, I mean, maybe fear is high, maybe we're sitting at Bitcoin lows, altcoin lows, at key support levels. Like if you want to go long at any point, and you think that, all right, well, I want to bet on the idea that, most of people are heavily, fearful, and they think the market is going to nuke, and, they're shorting. So I'm going to go long. Like you could think that way. Okay. But like I said before, you're really at the end of the year, you got to ask yourself, do you want to be taking, big size positions right now? Are you going to be happy if you get stopped out another time? Right? Are you going to be happy if your P&L tomorrow is lower than your P&L today? Okay. Important questions, right? So that's really about it. Like I said, I don't really want to talk too much about price action today. Just want to go over some key points that Raul mentioned, some key points from Arcane Research. We covered, our account update, probably going to close out the rest of the year at 26.9K. If I see another trade, maybe I'll take it, but I really don't care to take any trade right now. All right. That's about it. Any questions? Any questions so far? So I will say right now, by the way, just final note, if you're paying attention to altcoins, right, just keep it very simple. Okay. Make your chart like this, and, you convert this to a 1-minute chart. All you really do is, you open a ticker like XBT/USD, change this to a line chart, and then start comparing, like adding these different assets. Okay. And then your chart will look like this. All right. The point is that I'm asking you guys to make a chart like this, because if you are looking to take on any trade, and again, not investment advice, all you really have to do is see where exactly does BTC and most of the market, find a quick bounce, and see what starts leading at the top of the list. All right. Like as of right now, you can see SNX is at the top, right? Sometimes like these assets, they quickly push up, 1, 2, 3, 4% in the matter of minutes. And that's it. Like that's your scalp, but you got to be quick enough to recognize what are the assets that are going to be at the top of the list, and they're going to be leading the pack for another, couple of minutes. And that's really, sometimes how I go about quickly scalping. Okay. Other than that, honestly, I don't really care to scalp, just because more often than not, you're going to get beat by the market. You're not faster than the market. And yeah, I mean, scalping is just really hard in a very choppy environment, right? Can I mention Matic? Yes. So, like most things, I think Matic is also in a very precarious area. Let me see here. Where's Matic? There it is. Okay. So, Matic coming off the high right here, 2.82. Once again, this is kind of seen as a clear sort of deviation, right? This is a SFP, swing failure pattern, because you failed to break above the previous high, and you failed to push higher, right? So when you do this and you come back inside the high, well, then that means that the sellers are once again regaining control, in which case then you have to look forward to the next strongest support. Maybe the next strongest support is right here, but I would figure the next strongest support is probably around 221, right? That's really where these two got capped. resistance right there. Again, failed breakout, comes back down, then smashes through. So this might be 221, the next level that could be seen as the highest, risk to reward potential buying opportunity. If you're buying now, right? If you're buying now and your stop is here, higher chances that even if a wick comes in, you'll get wicked out. Right? So then where do you place your stop? Do you place it here or here or here? Right? So you can see there's an uncertainty in how you go about trading that if you do want to get into, longing Matic. But if you think that, all right, Matic has, temporarily bottomed, well, then the trade is very simple. It's like that. Take this trade back to 282 or the previous, all-time high, which is around 292. All right. Cool. Did I already talk about FTM? Yes, I just spoke about FTM. AVAX. Let me talk about AVAX real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. So like I said, for the most part, I mean, there's really not a whole lot of reason to discuss the, overall price action of what's going on, other than the fact that we know for the most part that the market is kind of being grinded down slowly. And you're kind of creating lower highs across the board. Very few altcoins are actually, performing well, especially over the last several months. So as you head into 2021, you may want to start being careful. All right. But anyway, for AVAX, I mean, again, right? Like if these are the key levels that should be holding, AVAX needs to smash above this level and start moving away, in which case then you can go long at this level, stop down here or down here, and your next target profit is 115. Okay, it's as simple as that. But if you think that, AVAX here is doing something very similar like here or like here, where it's just going to fail at this level and start breaking down further, then the best opportunity here is short, stop, target profit, that level, and then maybe target profit, somewhere down here around $94, $95. Okay. But as of right now, there's no momentum in AVAX, right? This looks like, this looks like a very strong sell pressure that's bringing AVAX down. Okay. Cool. All right. So spoke about AVAX, Matic, FTM. All right, everybody. That's it. That's all I got for y'all. Thank you so much for watching. All right. Good luck to you. If I don't talk to you, if some of you are out on vacation, have a great new year. See y'all in 2022. We will be kicking ass in 2022 as well. All right. I promise you. Okay. We put up big numbers for 2021. I think we could do it again. All right. Once again, we do not provide financial advice in this community. All right. I have to say that legally. So have a great rest of your day. Cheers, everybody.